Despite the turmoil of the times, despite the crumbling of the old structures, despite the enormous stresses that the human being must endure during these times and the times to come, despite all of the illusion of pain and loss and fear, despite the enormous weight, the enormous energy of past colliding with future, you have been gifted with grace. Grace. The outcome of your faith, the outcome of your courage, faith in the process that you have committed yourselves to, faith in a journey that you undertook, not knowing where it would lead, not at all understanding the true purpose of your process, the true purpose of that crooked, tilting, reaching, stretching, bending path that you found yourselves on. Many tests of your faith, many dark nights when you have thought to yourselves, have I been a fool? Is this an illusion, this spiritual journey? Why am I burdened with such disappointment and such pain and such loss? Why? When about me I see those who have no notion of a wider spiritual reality sailing along very nicely, thank you. Am I a fool? Are they all right who have said that I am in an illusion? Everyone has gone through that. But despite those tests, and it is the tests that build the strength of faith, when you were reduced to nothing but faith the size of a mustard seed, and yet continue. That's courage, and courage is your faith in action. And the outcome has been the reception by each of you of the energy of Christ, of forgiveness, including self-forgiveness, and of grace. Grace, that sureness within, that is the outcome of your faith. The sense of rightness. The sense that you cannot ever be harmed because the mantle of fear has been lifted from your shoulder, and harm comes only from fear. Without your fear, your horizons expand. You begin to see more of the wider reality, to see more clearly the cycles of life, the illusion of death, the reality of rebirth, the sense of God, the awareness of the universe, not simply as a panoply of stars above your head, but contained within you as it surrounds you. The sense of wonder, the belief, and the acceptance of the reality of miracles. The awareness that you are not alone, that this journey as a human being is not the lonely and isolated journey that humanity has so often thought, but that you have guides around you and within you. The awareness, perhaps not specific, but powerful nonetheless, that you have lived and lived and lived before. That sense of eternity. The awareness gradually growing that you are eternal beings. The beginnings of the awareness that you are gods in training. That if you are one with God, you are God. You are unveiling yourself to yourself, revealing bit by bit and inch by inch the reality of your true nature, the brother and the sister of Christ, the children of God, children of the parent, essence of the parent's essence, a oneness in being, no less than the parent is the child. The bare beginnings of the awareness of your true natures and of your true destiny as human beings. This is the whole armor of God, that which protects you through all of the strain and the stress, the agony, the struggle, the sound, and the fury of the noisy and tear-stained end of an old world. All around you now, you see in every detail on earth the seed of fear grown full, tainting all whom it touches. The fear of the night, the fear to walk in the streets, the fear of strangers, the fear of those who are different in class or in color, the fear of the foreigner, the alien, fear of the madman. The madman is the signature of this age. Unpredictable, a vehicle for hate, for rage and revenge, able to strike anywhere at any time, seemingly random slaughter, madness. When it's one individual, you call it madness. When it is a whole nation, it is called fanaticism, but it's just as mad, and just as unpredictable, and just as fatal. And there is no place on earth now where you are safe from the madman, the knife and the night, the shot and the dark, the sudden rending of your illusion that you are safe. For no one now is safe in their home, in their neighborhood, in their city, in their country, in their world. All seemingly at jeopardy from each other's rage and from the rage of the suffering planet. Again, striking swiftly, unexpectedly, fatally. You cannot trust the ground you walk on. You cannot trust your neighbor. You can trust no one and no thing. You cannot trust your institutions. Government, treated in this nation with great respect for virtually all of its history, now is seen as a hollow joke, manipulated by profiteers, by career politicians, manipulated for the benefit of the rich at the expense of the poor, to the favor of the haves at the cost of the have-nots. Politicians with empty brains and empty words. And so those you have chosen as a people to be your parents and your guardians and your police, your protectors, are seen to be hollow. Another institution cracking and crumbling away. Those who once flocked to the church for protection against an uncertain world now find the churches in disarray, unclear, unsure. They find their priests molesting children. Well, priests have been doing that all through history. But now, as the seeds of fear have grown into plants of terror, all of this comes into view. That which was at the deepest, darkest cellar of the human soul has now spewed out its filth in everyone's plate. And so the films that are offered reflect the headlines that reflect the fear of all human beings still caught in that web, that illusion of the power of fear. Sound as a dollar. How long has it been since anyone has said that? You know that your dollar is not sound. You have it rubbed in your face day after day that you are the victim of the victim or potential victim of other countries and other economies that fail or that take over your markets. You find that the bankers upon whom you have depended are crooks, profiteers, greedmongers. They're being jailed right and left amidst very expensive scandal. That fewer and fewer mega corporations own more and more of everything there is to own. That there is no thought, no consideration for the small, for the individual, for the weak, for the victimizable. But in the very size of organizations stacked upon organizations, crowded in with organizations, put under an umbrella to give the illusion of strength and stability. It's a thin veneer. Beneath is the cracked and broken structure of an outmoded and outworn economical system. You have seen in these past few years the destruction of the superstructure of what you have called communism. Why? Because communism is in its practice, and of course it's not truly communism that's being practiced, but state-centralized socialism that has been practiced, that it is bankrupt because it never had any virtues, it never had any hope of success, that it was always a false god, and that good old capitalism is winning the day. Not so. The communist structure was as invalid as is your own. Only it was based on a weaker foundation economically, with a very poor tradition of sound administration. So it was weaker, and so it collapsed first. but it is the beginning of a worldwide economic collapse of all of the socialist and the capitalist and the bit of this and bit of that governments and economic systems that have made this rickety economy of the world now falling in upon itself. And the more it collapses, the more belief is withdrawn from it. 50 years ago, 100 years ago, there were those who said, I believe in capitalism. And their belief was so powerful, any man can get rich in America. When you join belief and belief and belief of many, many individuals, it is powerful. And it enacts its belief. It is always mind over matter. That is the human godhood. But when cracks appear in that powerful belief, as we said a few weeks ago, speaking of ghosts, and of elves and fairies and so forth, and brownies and such like, that when they were fully believed in, you saw evidences. But as that belief cracked and fell, as new beliefs evolved that edged them out of the picture, then that whole structure of reality became invisible to the human being. Did it disappear? No, it has its own validity. But the impingement, the sharing of reality ended, by and large. Now there are only a few pockets of people who believe, not enough to create the power of a true reality into this reality. So it is with the structures that humans have created. Humans have always been characterized by their self-doubt. They've been characterized by their self-doubt because of their involvement in the illusion of duality, in the belief that dark is as powerful as light, in the belief that fear has a reality of its own. You breathe the power into fear with your fear. As you withdraw that fear, as you found in your own lives, life becomes much more manageable. It doesn't mean different things happen to you. It means you respond differently. You see, that's the key. That's the magic. That is alchemy. You change your reality by changing your response to it. You change your response to it by ending the rule of fear in your life. But around you is a world filled with fear and those who believe in that illusion. And that illusionary structure is collapsing. It is collapsing from the collective power of the fear that has undermined its validity. Its validity is underminable because these structures were created by people caught in that duality of fear and love. And so they made war on behalf of God and killed people in the name of compassion and fought themselves and each other all the way down the line. The history of the human race is primarily the history of warfare. Somebody once said, suppose they gave a war and nobody came. Well, you're almost at that point, you see, but there's not an even growth at this early juncture of the creation of a new reality based upon the singleness of love. But you are beginning to see the inroads made of people who say, no, I'm not going to fight in a war. Are you crazy? Why would I do that? And who are as puzzled by that concept as the older ones believe in it. Well, what do you mean you're not going to fight in a war? This is your country calling you to fight, to defend, whatever. Minor Arabian nobility, oil, the American way of life. Doesn't matter. More and more people are seeing that the emperor is bare naked and refuse because they are unable to reconstitute an illusion once it is destroyed. Now, as this consciousness grows, eventually it will be impossible for a government to muster an army, save to defend their own homes and their own shores. But that war of aggression will become impossible. But, as I say, you're growing at different rates. This nation, with all of its myriad faults, was founded with the clear intent of creating the Aquarian breeding ground by its founders who planned astrologically its birth. So you're ahead. Which means that those cultures that are more nearly consumed by fear and by illusory beliefs in gods who desire death, and gods who say, my truth and nothing but my truth, so help you, they, unfortunately, are all too willing to fight and to die. But even in their ranks, this energy that I spoke of a number of years ago, the Christ energy, and I announced the Christ energy has been released. Not in an enormous flood that would drown more than would be able to swim in it, but drop by drop, bit by bit, cycles of release, timed with the major solar eclipses, twice a year. This has been going on. I told you in the beginning, if you got the whole blast, you just shrivel up. It's too much. It's because, you see, it is a change on a very real material level. It's not, quote, just a spiritual leap forward, a spiritual transformation. Spirit is everything. You assign certain properties to the material, but it is as spiritual as anything else, and as everything else. So these changes within you that accompany and are the gift of the Spirit entering you affect you in powerful ways, including physically. There's physical change at the atomic level, an adjustment, a new energy level. I said before, you are not who you were. You are no longer Homo sapiens. You are triune beings. And those enormous physical changes take time, drip by drip by drip by drip, gradually adjusting and shifting and growing. Now truly, as the decade of the 90s begins, 1990, of course, is the last of the decade of the 80s. 1991. It is not the end, it is the beginning of the end. It is not the future, it is the beginnings of the future. Still, the sounds of violence, the thunder and crash of old institutions will dominate. There will be more, quote, bad news than good for those who cannot truly see. I can tell you now in a very unvarnished way what I could not be so blunt about a few years ago, and that is because, of course, you're ready. Whether you know it or not, whether you're fully aware of it or not, you're ready. You've received the grace that will allow you to move through the storm that is beginning, protected, able to share your peace and your understanding with all those who will open themselves to that sharing. You have nothing to fear. You have proved in your own lives the power of faith. You are beginning to learn to live in this moving moment that is the only true reality in this universe. When you are bound by time, you must ride the wave. Everything that passes is gone beyond redemption. Everything to come is simply a theory. But you're learning now to ride the wave of reality, to wake up to the space that allows you. When your mind and your awareness is so clouded and crowded with memories of the past and past mistakes and injuries done you and resentments and so forth, combined with the fearful anticipation of what's coming down the pike, you don't have much consciousness left to live in the moment. When the fear is withdrawn, the moment grows. And you see, I have great power in this moving moment. Today, now, I can do what I choose. I have freedom, and I have power, and I have not fear. As I've said before, then when all about you are losing their heads, you will be keeping yours, and you will be a lighthouse in the storm. So now we have the beginning of the countdown of the 90s. To a large extent, and when we speak of separate years, we're artificially breaking into pieces a continuum of flow of event and of time and action. So, but doing that anyway, just for convenience sake, we'll say that 1991 will be, to a large extent, the preparation of the stage for the drama of 1992. Many of you are aware, one way or another, that many events have been forecast for 1992, and not many of them calm and reassuring events. This focus upon the Middle East, of course, has been predicted many, many times long ago and in the recent past, that this is going to be the center, the eye of the storm. This is the focus. This is the spiritual home of so many who distrust each other and want that home for themselves alone. This is the collision of old grudges. Come home to roost. Come home to be settled, one way or another. This is it. And it is. It is indeed. I don't want to raise the specter of Armageddon. It sounds so final. Of course, this is not final at all. But there will be similarities, let us say, to the events as they progress. Now, the future, as I've said many times, is not all scripted out there waiting to happen as you reach it. You, all of you, human beings, have free will. You are on a common journey that most of you are unaware of, but within the context of that common journey, you have the right to choose. Yet we will see certain prophesied events take place. The degree of discomfort experienced during them is largely in human hands. Now let's take a look at this current situation between Persia, between Babylon, I should say, and the United States. The United States, called often the New Babylon. Have you heard that? Many times the United States and its culture have been described as Babylon. And here we are, eyeball to eyeball, with the old Babylon. Let us look at the leading figures in this present confrontation. Now, anyone with any degree of sense whatsoever knows that this war is not about anything but power. That nobody really gives a damn about those rich Arab chieftains of Kuwait, an artificial state in the first place, propped up only by its oil reserves. Nobody gives a damn about that. This isn't the war to make the world safe for democracy. This isn't the war to end war. This is pure and naked power politics, in the sense that it has been for time immemorial in human society. So, as always, the wars are created by the old men to be fought by the young men, and now the young women as well. So let us look at these who are the decision makers, who by the nature of their personalities have created an eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation. Saddam Hussein has never been known as a religious leader, and yet, when I look within him, I see a fanatic who sees himself very much in messianic terms, destined to unite the Arab peoples. Now, he's not, in fact, a fanatic Muslim. He's more a fanatic nationalist or pan-Arabist. But he's a Muslim, and he believes within that context and uses Allah's desire to rid the world of heretics to his own advantage. Of course, Allah desires nothing of the kind. Allah is God. One of the faces that humans have pasted across the real visage of God. So we look at this man, and he has a sense of mission that has nothing whatsoever to do with logic. He will practice real politic up to a point, but not where it interferes with his vision of himself as the conquering Messiah. That has nothing to do with logic and everything to do with his inner reality. He will stop at nothing. He's not a fool. He's not a madman like Gaddafi. And so he will, and in fact, as if you've watched the situation, he's played the game very skillfully. The release, first the capturing of the guests, and then their piecemeal release, keeping the level of hostility at a point where he can no longer be universally thought of as that devil. Yet he is said, and is quite, don't believe that any of this is political and that he's setting something up so he can back out. He's not interested in backing out. He's thumping his chest, saying, go ahead, start a war. We'll eat you alive because Allah wills it. Now, you look on the other side and you see President Bush. A very complex man, which is not good in time of war. If you're going to have a war, you need a very single-minded individual under there in charge who's going to have that as his goal and win the war. Mr. Bush's actions as president reflect, of course, his inner vision of himself, which is a very shaky inner vision. Human beings sense the reality behind the illusion. without even knowing they're doing so. And you see throughout his career, Mr. Nixon was always called Tricky Dick. Would you buy a used car from this man? Yet he kept getting elected. But there was a fundamental underlying awareness that he wasn't to be trusted. That's a psychic awareness. It wasn't from what he did. It's from who he was. And with Mr. Bush, there is an underlying psychic awareness that this man is a wimp. And it doesn't matter how many sports he plays, or how much jogging he does, or how he tries to talk tough like a truck driving man. It's all hollow and it's all empty. He doesn't have any belief within himself. Not that calm, self-aware confidence of a man who is comfortable in his skin, but rather of a man who has to prove something. I'm not a wimp. Read my lips. Tough talking. Nothing behind it. And here he has himself out on a limb. The wimp that wants to prove he's a gutsy truck driving guy isn't going to back off from a fight. The fanatic who sees his victory as willed by God is not going to back off from a fight. Fortunately, there are other factors. Although these two individuals are and have within themselves the power to create the confrontation, there are political realities that Mr. Bush has to face. There are economic realities that Mr. Hussein has to face. So these are the outer garments of the situation, the men who play the roles, and the influences upon them of their allies, of their citizens, of the general approval or confidence that people have in them and their goal, and all of these little influences. But now we step back a bit from the outer garments and take a look at this from its spiritual purpose, from the viewpoint of spiritual purpose. The outcome is going to be the further crumbling of confidence, self-belief, which includes belief in oneself as a national citizen of a particular country. The outcome is going to be more of what has been building. That is to say, a breakdown of belief in the institutions of the world, and a sense of impending doom that all of this is leading to disaster. You read now in the paper that it is the world economy that is crumbling, that it will not be isolated if there is a depression, a crash. It cannot be isolated as once it was. The reverberations will be felt around the world, skipping no country. War of the nature contemplated in the Middle East will ring the bell that sets that disaster in motion, that brings about the collapse of countries who are in fact bankrupt but don't know it, including this country. The time has come and gone when the world, separately or collectively, can afford a big war. The reality that you live in has come to a point where a big war can't be tolerated. The reality is fracturing, but it's fracturing everywhere. In every little bit and piece of the cloth of the reality you live in. As I said earlier, the distrust beginning from I'm not safe in my home to I'm not safe in my country to I'm not safe in the world. So on this war front, the likelihood is that there will be war, and that is going to trigger an inevitable combination of events that serve to isolate the United States from its enemies and many of its former allies, that is going to increase the tension between the energies of that which has been and is dying and that which is coming and is being born. This United States is the mother of the dawning age and the father of the destruction of the old age. This is the key country. In its actions, it will create the conditions necessary for the death of the old so that the new can be born. And in the process of doing so, is likely to become deeply resented and hated by those who don't already resent and hate the United States. From its inception, the United States has represented a very frightening future. In the beginning, it was the old autocracies of Europe that looked in alarm at these nonsensical ideas of democracy. And as time has moved forward and the United States has gained power, foremost power in the world, all of those who are a part of what is dying fear and resent what is being born. It doesn't mean the United States is the shining white knight. It is the birthplace of the shining white light. It is the trigger that signals the end and the beginning. There's no way out of that. It is the role of this nation in this process. The world will not be engulfed in war during this coming year. It may largely be so in the year beyond. The wars are going to sputter badly because of the lack of citizen support and true economic strength. It is likely that these wars will be neither won nor lost, but will subside in a sort of an armed truce, because they can't be afforded, and the people that have to become the cannon fodder are increasingly unwilling to play that role. Because you are the triune human being, you will be triumphant over obstacles, and you will see them only as stepping stones. Fear not. And the rock that you find in your path will become a doorway to a new opportunity. You cannot be derailed. You've paid your dues. You're on the bus. The image is of that mythic Götterdämmerung, the twilight of the gods, the struggle, the death of the old. And amidst that chaos, this ribbon of peace that slowly encircles the globe, slowly transforms the fear and the confusion and the destruction into new birth and new life. The decade now beginning is going to be exciting. Learn to dance. It is not a time of peace in general, only of peace in the heart. There will be for you laughter and song and joy and celebration. For you and for all the legions who are breathing in the energy of transformation, the lifeblood of Christ. More and more and more and more and more of you. Reach out your hands. Touch, connect, expand. Cooperate. You are already linked with all of your brothers and your sisters in this process around the world, by whatever name it locally operates. This transformation is not limited by national boundaries or by race or by economics. The spirit that will save the world is the spirit of cooperation, of love in action. When you have not fear, you do not distrust your brother, because your brother and your sister will not betray you. There are steps to go before that becomes a universal reality. But it is a reality now among you. And the you will be expanded. And you will create on a small basis, on a block basis, on a neighborhood basis, cooperative structures that will work. And you will begin the creation of a webwork of spirit and flesh that will repopulate and rebuild and restore and renew the crumbling reality. That will be your focus. Midwives to the babe being born, not paying any attention to those loud noises of destruction. Now, I want to open this for you to ask whatever you wish about the year to come, personal or general or what have you.
Sometimes we hear on the news of groups around the world in different countries who are praying for peace. Now, their power is not strong enough to stop the conflict.
No, well, for one thing, you cannot derail the evolution. For example, all right, let's take a group, very sincere, very God-loving, who pray together for peace. Specifically, perhaps, that war won't break out in the Mideast. Or that other specific, that this won't happen here, this won't happen here, that instead brotherhood, sisterhood, peace, justice will prevail. The energy, the positive energy of such a prayer, joining together many spirits in one, is great. And it will alleviate and ameliorate. I told you, you have free will. This process can be horribly hard, incredibly destructive, but the process must continue. And so if by the energy of prayer you are lending your voice and your spirit to peace, the energy of peace, then that will become a part of the mix. And the more peace, the more prayer, the more positive vibrations that you send into this, either through your mind and heart or through your physical actions or both, the better things will be for you and ultimately for humankind. But because there is a plot line to be followed, though you improvise the script, it will be necessary for certain kinds of events to take place in order that this process be completed. It is in fact necessary that many will die. But How cruel that seems, unless you realize that death itself is the biggest joke of all. That it doesn't exist in any real sense. It only looks like it does. Oh, look, that fellow fell down, and he's not breathing. Just a piece of meat now. Well, he separated himself from this vehicle, yes. But he's not dead. His life isn't over. It's continuing in a new phase. And he'll be back in this reality to do what he needs to do, or she, whenever that comes about. So, there is no death. There is not that finality that so many fear. You need to have the vision and the maturity to recognize that while with all of your heart and with all of your soul and with all of your desire and all of your spirit, you wish to bring peace, you wish to avoid killing, you wish to end the rule of fear, and that is vital, that you wish that and that you work for that, you need also to have the maturity to recognize that many will die, that the old must be destroyed so that the new can be built. And so you work to heal the process so that those who are wounded are cared for, those who are in fear are reassured, those who suffer are ministered to. But your vision now is not the little vision of the past. And so, by all means, give your energy, give your love freely. As we've said with individuals, send the healing. If it's not wanted, it will be turned away. The gift is the giving. Yes.
I've been waiting for the changes to happen for so long that I almost feel like I'm ready for the destruction. I'm ready for it to happen. I feel like the only thing I can do is to turn my head and not watch. I can't say I don't want it to happen.
No, and it's not sticking your head in the sand like the ostrich and saying that's not happening because I can't see it. It's not paying attention to it. Why drag yourself down into that muck when you know that it's part of a process of cleansing and healing?
And that's not wrong.
No, not at all. It's necessary and desirable. If you're seduced by the spectacle of the destruction, you're using up part of your consciousness that could be working on the birth of the babe.
I have a more personal question. I'm just, as usual, dealing with relationship issues, and I asked you a couple months ago about a man named Craig, and it feels like a situation that I'd say, here I am again, in the same situation where I'm interested in someone that just doesn't seem open to me.
Yes. As I have said, you may come into the same situations. And at first you think, oh no, here I am, the same old situation. But you're not the same old person. Therefore, the difference will be in your response to the situation. Are you going to be dismayed and depressed by the failure of expectations? If so, you are paying too much energy into the illusion of expectation. This issue will disappear for you when you have proved to yourself your mastery over it. A divine indifference inspired by faith and allowed by grace. It doesn't mean that you disassociate yourself from your reality or that you build a shield to protect yourself. It is that you expand that higher aspect of your nature into recognizing that this is all a process, that it is not eternal. I said just recently to you that this is the time of the test questions at the end of the chapter. The reminder, all right now, we dealt with this issue. Now, do you remember that? Now, here it is again. Now, do you fall back into the old pattern of your response to this, or have you learned that you are not dependent upon a specific outcome of this situation? That you are your self-image, your knowledge of yourself, your awareness of yourself and your uniqueness and your strength and your value lies in your own eyes, not in the way anyone else interacts with you, not in the way anyone treats you. You, in this time, must prove the inviolability of your love for yourself, your acceptance of yourself, your belief in your worth, so that this kind of situation will never raise its head again. Now it comes out and says boo to you, and you think, oh no, not again. Not again. Not again. This is the first time for a new attitude, a new response to an old fear bugaboo. It's going to pass right through you. Remember, I've said that there's going to be an enormous energy change come February. It's going to affect everyone. It's largely positive. There has been a stall to certain actions. Well, some of the actions that are released by the forward-moving energy that comes are going to appear to be negative, and that is to say in terms of war and that sort of thing. Positive only in the wider view. But for those like yourself on this journey of growth, that's going to mark the end of these finals, the end of of what has been a nearly 3-year period of reviewal, release, and renewal. So don't be frightened by a fading ghost.
I had a question. Basically, I was just wanting to ask if my guides had a message for me, and just in terms of 1991 and some advice for me, anything at all. I'm just kind of seems at a real lull in my life.
Yes, that's fine, and that's not improper at all that there be the appearance of a lull. I've called it limbo for many. It's where nothing seems to be happening, and yet so much is happening internally that it's a damn lucky thing that nothing much is happening externally, because you're really too busy to move on to that next stage. That lull is coming to a head for you, to an end for you too, and March is going to see a great movement forward. Your own guidance system says to me to say to you to be bold, to be even impetuous, to take action. No need to weigh and ponder. Trust instincts. That you begin to act more instinctually, intuitionally. There will be a part of you that says, oh, well, I need to think all this over. No, don't. Every time you think that, say, I don't need to think anything over. I already know what's right. I just need to take action and trust that the action I take will be appropriate because I'm right that I'm right. It is an affirmation of the Spirit that is now motivating your actions, that you are no longer in a time in your life, and I say this to all of you, where you are being guided only by your mind, by your intellect, by the need to weigh and balance and judge and thoughtfully consider and then hope for the best. that you have sure guidance, the wisdom of intuition, of the spirit. And in order for you to begin to recognize it as clearly as you recognize the actions of the intellect, you have to go with it. You have to operate on its wavelength, which means it feels at first like a short-circuiting of a process when you leap to the conclusion before you've had the time for the consideration. It's an action of trust and faith that the consideration has already taken place on a higher level, and that instinct, that sense, that feeling is all right to act upon.
I just feel that I get so many ideas and so many fields to branch out into, and how can one like so many things and want to do so many diverse things simultaneously?
Yes, well, that's the trap, of course. And it's a trap that, if carefully managed, can keep you from action forever. And that's exactly the point. It's exactly the point. You make what seems to you, consciously, an arbitrary choice. Well, there's this. I don't know what to choose. I want this. I like this. I'm good at this. I feel like I should do this. I'll take you. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo is you. Trusting that your eeny, meeny, miny, mo is not random, but guided by your inner knowledge of what is appropriate action. So what seems arbitrary is not, and will prove itself to you. But that first step, that first action of faith must be taken by you.
Well, I'm feeling a sense that I have on and off all during 1990, but it feels stronger now, again, that I need to be writing, and that there's something creative that's just ready to come forth, and that it would be helpful to others and not just myself, and that it also would be lucrative. Do you see anything?
Yes. Yes, what you write must be the essence of who you are. Not anything put on, not separating the process of writing from the process of being. You write from your soul, from your perspective, from your experience. The love that is in you, that motivates you, that others feel when they encounter you, can be intimately transferred into the work of the writing. That's your essence, that's your being, and you're transferring it. So I would say to you, simplify and write based on the movements within you. Be you. Yes, this is going to be a very opportune time for you to begin to do that, without really setting any hard and fast goals, but playing with it, because it's exercising an aspect of yourself. It's not just like it would be in the past, when you would say, all right, I've decided I'm going to write something, and then I'm going to choose, I'm going to figure it out now, what would sell, and what do I know enough about, what could I write about, and go through that intellectual process, and then sit down and you write, and it's removed from you. This time, again, your action is based on your intuition, is based on an identity that is only now coming into view within yourself, and that you are defining with your every action. And so to act, again, to act upon your intuition, to play with that creative flow. Don't set yourself, at the beginning certainly, don't set yourself specific goals of what I'm going to write and what I'm going to do with it when I'm done. But allow your consciousness to be transcribed by your hand. And so, and play with that creative flow. This is coming up as a year of stretching, reaching, exercising yourselves. Coming awake after a long sleep and stretching out and taking new action. And I would say to all of you, don't set yourself rigid goals. This is a brand new game you're playing. You need to learn about it. You need to learn about who you are without fear. that what are your desires, true desires? What actions are you capable of now? And so by not committing to some far-flung goal, you eliminate that self-expectation, and you eliminate past definitions of yourself and your talents and your abilities as you contemplate new actions. You need to divorce yourself from what used to be in your mind your limitations. And so it's a time to test and to play. Not in most cases, in some individuals this is different, but for most people it's going to be playing. It's going to be trying this out and exercising with that, and there'll be a little bit of meandering during the course of the year. You will be beginning a new journey in your life, but not with a roadmap and not with the expectation of your destination, but that wonderful luxury of a journey without a goal, where if you see an interesting woods off to the side of the road, you can stop and go explore it. When you see a sign that says scenic sight off of the route that you've been on, you have the time and the leisure and the inclination to follow it and see what that scenic sight might be. So don't go marching off to battle this year. Be the explorer.
I had another question also. About a week and a half ago, I was in a car accident, and I must say it surprised me more than anything, because I just thought I was done with stuff like that. And it doesn't really seem to have done any kind of major damage for me. But it's interesting that now, as I'm getting the chiropractic treatment, it feels like it's like a major realigning internally or opening up of things that needed to be opened up, and like it was maybe the cheapest way to do it.
Yes, well, see, you're proving by your very words the process and the advancement that you have made in your own process. Because, all right, here's the car accident. You say, oh, no, I didn't think this would. Well, I've already said you're going to have events in your life as other people do. The difference is going to be in your response to those events. And so what did you do? Wallow in self-pity and renewed fear? Or look into the situation to see what the purpose was behind the apparent purpose? And so you go to the chiropractor, and you're not preoccupied with worrying about, oh, have I been injured in some way? But you're looking at it and you're saying, aha, this is a realignment, and it wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have put myself into the situation without the trigger of the accident. You begin to see beyond the externals and what is apparent into the heart of events in your life.
So do you see a realigning happening with it?
Oh, yes.
Is there an energy change that's happening?
Yes, and you're going to experience that in different ways. And it's not that you're all going to go out and have car accidents by any means, depending upon your personal issues. But for each of you, there is a realignment on a physical level. You are clarifying, healing, cleansing. And where there is, and for most people to a certain extent, there is evidence in their structure, in their physical structure, of the spiritual issues they've had to deal with, of the fears that they've responded to over the years, to a degree, to some a small degree, to some a larger degree, and so for those who experience great reverberations on a physical level, then in the healing process there will be clear physically oriented ways of readjusting and realigning. For those to whom that's a minor matter, that adjustment process will not be so obvious and may indeed occur in quite a different manner. But for all, there is a shifting and an adjustment as you grow into the unity of body, mind, and spirit. Now, as you're able, through the spirit, to communicate with body more clearly, you'll find quicker change in your life, in your unity with the body self, the body awareness, you won't be strangers anymore.
Thank you. Working at seems to be dying, and at the same time that that's dying, I seem to be getting more clear about what I want and my own school and stuff. I'm wondering if that's an accurate portrayal of what's going on at the daycare.
Yes, it's not necessarily dying a death. It may be dying in preparation for a shift, a change. It may not go out of existence, but it does look as though there's a crisis approaching there. And from your point of view and for your sake, it is helping you to arrive at particular conclusions as you experience that. And so, for you, that is the purpose of its decline, apparent decline.
Will I get to the point where I'm ready to move off before it comes to a point where I can't stand it anymore?
Well, I think the 2 points are going to coincide, because you're going to decide, I don't need to stand this anymore, at the point when you're ready. That will signal the point where you're ready to begin your own journey.
I have a question. I'm starting a group in January. It's a supervision group for therapists, and I'm just wondering about the woman that leads it. Her name is Diane, and just what this group's going to be for me.
It seems very positive. A light is shining on it from this individual. Is there a man in this group? It may be male energy, it may be a male, but there's someone who's going to be dragging, let's say, his feet. But by and large, he's going to be the voice of the doubter and the pessimist and so forth. But I look at this, by and large, as a positive move, positive action.
Would you have anything to say, Plautus, about Paul's move to become more financially successful, and how this tape program and the mail order program will work out?
Yes, again, it's the beginning of the beginning, and not a review of the past. And so it's going to begin gradually, not going to spring into full life, because it is not a renewal of what was, but a brand new journey. I would say to you, and to both of you, don't put a time clock on yourselves. Over the next 2 months, this new direction will have its influence felt and begin to move closer and closer to a smooth acceleration. This is, again, it's just a beginning here. I have to tippy-toe a little bit here, because this is a process in the act of beginning to change, and so there's still some residue in the cleansing process that needs to be completed. So I'm not going to get into details about the manifestation, but it is we're looking here for a kind of growth that is not attained by buying someone's mailing list. In other words, it is organic and not artificial. It will grow as the signals and the timing move forward. It will grow in a more organic way, in which one person tells another and another tells another, and not subject to the normal forms of publicity. That may come up later, but the nucleus, the energy formation, needs to come from this interconnection of souls, of spirits, and the expansion of that connection, so that each who joins is wholly a part of that new form, that new whole. I've got to be general here, but
it's kind of like we'll be ready when they're ready.
Yes, well, of course, that's true. Of course, I'm trying to be a little more helpful than that. I have to say to you, as I've said to everyone, follow your intuition, act without fear, and listen to yourself, and you become one with the timing, not by looking and saying, now where is that timing? And what is that timing? I have to be able to hear it and see it and feel it. You will feel it, but you'll learn what it feels like after you're already doing it, you see. So you trust at first, well, this must be the timing because this is what I'm doing now. And so you begin to place a great deal of faith in yourself and in your judgment. And that's very hard to do. When you've never had that much faith in your judgment and you're not going by what so-and-so says, but by the promptings within that you may not even hear as promptings. As I said, you may need to take arbitrary action, apparently arbitrary action. So with this I'd say, go ahead, put one foot after another, the timing will take care of itself. Never feel anxiety or the need to push. The growth will come in the new way.
Well, I have a nephew, Dean Crawford, who is a manic depressive. I don't know how you say it, he's manic depressive. And this has been a terrible burden on his father and mother, and also on himself. And I want to know, I guess, if there is, he's been on medication and he's been in and out of jail and he's been, all sorts of things have happened to him. And is there any hope? Because basically, he's a really good guy. And when he isn't in one of his...
This is a...
he can cope, but...
This is largely a chemically based issue, and it has to do with an endocrine imbalance that is inherent, genetic, but correctable. I would, rather than call him a manic depressive, I would simply call him a depressive. I don't see much evidence of mania, of the overbright, excitement.
Well, he does.
It's like those are little blips, but there's a long, deep trough.
Yeah, and then there's a great high when he goes out and has all these wonderful ideas of things he can do, and he borrows money from people, and he gets going on this. And then, of course, he never can follow through with it, because then he goes down in the trough again.
Yes.
But my main question, I suppose, is that he writes me, and these heartbreaking letters about how his father is against him and wants to keep him in treatment and wants to keep him in prison till he gets help and all this. And I know, that isn't true.
Yes. Yes, his view of reality is deeply tainted by his inner despair. And again, that is less of a true emotional problem than it is a physical imbalance, chemical imbalance. Medication is, at this juncture in human development, the best way of regulating these downswings and upswings. When that fundamental balance is achieved, you might think, well, that's an artificial way of achieving it, but it provides the stability necessary to build upon. then I would say he should be. It would be appropriate to encourage other self-regulating disciplines, chiefly meditation. He would be able to find then that after a period of time he would be able to rebalance through his connection, body, mind, spirit connection at the meditative level, and begin to go through a rebalancing process, eventually would adjust the chemical imbalance. The spirit has power over the flesh, and the flesh is temporary and of this world only, and the spirit is eternal. I do not see that he is karmically prevented from healing. In other words, it's not a life sentence necessarily. And I would say in 6 months that he will probably be at a point in June, possibly July, when he will be able to move beyond this sort of invalid status, where he will reach, he has the potential of reaching a point of stability that he can begin to build on. In the meantime, you have to simply recognize that he is not seeing, that he is seeing his reality very honestly from his own point of view, but his point of view is badly skewed. So try not to identify too strongly and say, oh, this poor boy who's so deluded, while acknowledging that, yes, he is deluded. But don't get torn up by it.
Okay, what I'm primarily asking, I suppose, is how to, I mean, I write him because he lives in California. How can I, well, maybe just the things you said.
Upbeat, honest, supportive.
Because he, like some years back, he went to India to follow a guru because he believes that he got more spirituality from that religion than he ever did from here. Now he's in jail, he's read the Bible, and now he talks about Jesus and that sort of thing as also being a help. But so I know that it isn't.
Yes.
He hasn't.
No, but so far it's been appeals to the emotions and appeals to the ego. Now he needs, at his next step, is to appeal directly to the spirit, and that is working within himself, not dependent upon the outside guru or upon the outside savior who will simply pluck him from his despair. The answer, of course, lies within him, and his strong spiritual urge has been stigmatized by his imbalance. But as he reaches a point of stability, then he's going to be able to work on a more knowing level, finding the power within himself. Now, he may not choose to do these things, you know, but these are his potentials now. It's in his hands, and all you can do is encourage him, you know, and not respond, either negatively or positively, to accusations that he may make against others. For example, as you said to his father. Don't respond, don't acknowledge its existence.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yes, because he's not open to argument. This is deep. Yes. Yes.
Plautus, I have a question. Could you speak to me for one part of the question and then the rest of us for the other part? I feel the presence and a reason and role of extraterrestrial spiritual guidance in my life. Could you tell me if there's a message, you know, from those types of guides for me, and also of their role in this drama that we're carrying out, because I feel it's valid and just, you know, kind of basic.
Yes, this is a matter that we've touched on before, and the fact is that there are indeed extraterrestrials, both in material form and in projected form from far distant places, that this is a coming of age for humanity, and they are, in a sense, many of them midwives in this process. There are guides of many forms, entirely spiritual guides from a wider reality, another dimension of reality that are with you sometimes for your life, and sometimes some of them for a few weeks. Sometimes a crowd gathers, and sometimes it's just you and your higher self. But the extraterrestrial involvement is real. It's obviously, it's not the first time extraterrestrials have been on Earth. They've been both monitoring human progress and stimulating human progress for millennia. And now, as a great stage of that process comes to an end and a greater stage begins, this is graduation for humanity. The ending of the duality is absolutely necessary for humanity to expand into its true role and purpose, that of being priests. We've described it, a priest among the worlds. And there's a great deal of learning that must first take place. Humanity will be joining and I try not to sound too science fiction-y here, but the science fiction itself, a relatively new genre, arose because of the beginnings of awareness of what was to come. And of course you're not alone in the universe. Of course the universe is crowded with consciousnesses of many kinds, some more primitive than humanity, some far advanced. As you end your duality as a people, you are welcomed into a confraternity of worlds. And so there are extraterrestrial presences here for purely spiritual purposes, and some that may be called, well, I don't hate to call anyone a politician, I guess, but we're more involved in the preparation for the welcoming of a new member.